Welcome to the 11th ToKini Andy Kanji lesson. Today we're going to cover the meaning, building blocks, writing, historical evolution where applicable, and a story to memorize each of the following kanji. We'll also learn the parts and radicals needed for those kanji. Today, there are 2 new parts. And stick around to the end of the lesson where we'll be doing a quick quiz to help everything stick. Also, check out the pinned comment below this video to see why we're not learning readings for each kanji just yet. This kanji is apparently supposed to be the image of a mochi hammer, also known as a kine, and it is the 7th kanji in the Chinese zodiac, also known as the horse zodiac. Sometimes the kanji for a real horse is used in the zodiac, but this one seems to be the standard in Japanese versions. Please do correct me if I'm wrong though. I'm sure you will regardless. But anyway, in modern Japanese, it's almost always used in reference to time. Specifically, it marks noon, and it's usually combined with kanji like before or after to indicate whether something is happening before or after noon, aka AM or PM. I think that the official radical for this kanji, 10, makes it easy to remember. You write it with 2 strokes plus 10, aka 12 noon. The parts are no lying down and 10. There are 4 strokes in noon with no tricks in sight. We draw no first, followed by ichi. We then draw 10 as expected with the horizontal line first and the staff part last, cutting down the middle. Historically, this was modeled after a mochi hammer, as I mentioned before, and was then borrowed for the zodiac, and eventually became what it is today. The official old Japanese kanji kids learn in school looks more like a house roof on top of a 10 though. None of that will help as much as this story does though. No lies down from 10 to noon every day. Do you see it? 10 to noon is 2 hours, which gives us the extra 2 strokes of no lying down. Remember that it's a good idea to pause the video after each story and really try to imagine it, or to create a story of your own that will help you remember the kanji even better. Make sure the story contains the meaning and every single part in some way. This radical is also a kanji, which appears on the Kanken level 10 and JLPT N2, so we won't be learning it as a kanji, or any words that contain it, until a later level. We're just going to learn it as the radical, which means hang to dry. It is its own official radical, made of the parts 1 and 10. This is a very simple kanji to write. We draw the 1 followed by the 10 below it, making sure the first horizontal line in 10 is a bit longer than the 1, which makes this almost look like a 2. We then draw the staff straight through it. You may of course be wondering at this point why on earth we did not make this a part of noon. Well, I think the historical versions can help make that a little clearer. The top part of this kanji was clearly always completely different from the one in noon. This one was supposed to be a shield with decorations on it apparently. Our story for this kanji will be: a fluorescent worm is left to dry on a 10 staff. Don't leave me out to dry here on YouTube. Make sure you hit that like button. Bringing us to the first kanji that makes me regret ever starting to teach kanji. It won't be the last either. Anyway, this is also the first kanji to use our last radical, hang to dry. But Andy, why not noon? Yeah, I know. I agree. It'd make way more sense, especially since noon is at least related to time, and this kanji means year. But alas, its official radical is hang to dry. With that said, I think it may make a little more sense by the time we get to the end of this section. And the kanji appears so frequently that you should have no issues with it before long. There are a few ways we can approach the parts. No, a 1 combined with hang to dry and an extra weird line thrown in to boot, or no lying down and hang to dry, giving us our extra horizontal line, and a weird extra vertical line. We're going to go with that one for our story, and we'll address it a bit more in the historical evolution section. There are 6 strokes in year, We start with the no and one in no lying down, followed by the first horizontal line in hang to dry. We then draw that weird mini staff, which we won't see again for quite a while, if at all. We then draw the final horizontal line, larger than all the previous lines, or rather longer, and connected to the mini staff. We then draw the vertical line through everything. Some sources claim this was a pictograph of a person carrying grains on their back and representing a meaning of a ripening crop. Some others claim this is a mistake. All sources I found, though, do agree that the top part of this kanji was originally a radical. We'll learn later that means grain, and the bottom was 1,000. Basically, it looked like this. That was eventually borrowed and then simplified into this character, giving us a meaning of year. For our story, we'll have the worm that no lies down on is used for a year before being replaced. That's an English one thrown in the middle of the drying kanji. That's because the worm dries out after 1 year, as you can see in the image. My throat is drying out after all that talking, so why don't you hit the subscribe button and the bell while I grab a drink. That brings us to our last part for today, which means small measurement. Technically, this is a kanji and its own radical. It doesn't show up until the JLPT N1 and Kanken 5 though, so we're learning it today as a radical only. The parts are 1, feathered broomstick, and a dot or drop. There are 3 strokes in small measurement. We draw the 1 first and cut the feathered broomstick through that. Make sure the feathered broomstick is off to the right quite a ways. It should not be drawn right down the center like you might expect. We then draw the drop enclosed within those 2 strokes on the left. Historically, this appears to have usually been an alien hand with an extra horizontal line next to it or attached to it. Some dictionaries suggest that this was an image of touching one's wrist to measure heartbeats. Others suggest a hand making a small measurement. Others suggest this is all malarkey. Regardless, to me, this looks a lot like a pictograph of the following story. These are small measurement calipers, measuring the exact size of a small drop. Let me know in the comments if you can see that. The first kanji we'll be learning with the small measurement part is temple. The official radical is small measurement, with the parts being clearly defined as dirt or soil on top of small measurement. There are 6 strokes in temple. We start with the first horizontal stroke in dirt and cut the staff part through that. We then draw the final horizontal stroke in dirt. Make sure to keep this part in the upper half because we're drawing a full-on small measurement below it. We draw the 1 in small measurement, followed by the feathered broomstick, flexing out to the left, and the drop enclosed inside of them both on the left. Historically, the top part of this character used to be the radical stop, and was placed there to indicate pronunciation. The kanji as a whole apparently held a meaning of to carry or hold, which actually explains why it appears in some kanji we'll learn later. It also often used to mean public office. Eventually, the top was changed to dirt, and it also came to mean temple, which is the only place we really see it on its own today. For our story, we'll say, there is always a cemetery on the ground behind or above temples in Japan, and every temple is measured precisely, 1 small measurement at a time. Remember, the kanji for dirt, to me at least, looks like a gravestone, which is why we keep using that in stories. The time has come. We are finally at the halfway point of all parts and kanji we're going to be learning in the JLPT N5 and Kanken 10 level. In no time, we'll be learning words for each of these kanji. This kanji means time. The official radical for time is appropriately sun, the ultimate indicator of time. The parts we'll be breaking it down into are sun and temple. There are 10 strokes in time, making it the most stroke-heavy kanji we've learned to date. With that said, I don't think you will find it particularly challenging. We start with the first 2 strokes in the enclosure of sun. Draw the one inside of it, and close it up. We shine that sun over onto the temple on the right, starting that with the dirt on top. Horizontal, vertical, horizontal. We then draw small measurement below it, making sure to swipe left on the feathered broomstick, and enclose our drop within it. Historically, this appears to have contained the same parts, just from that respective time. It appears that sun was used to indicate the meaning, which is often the role of parts that show up in the hen position on the left, while temple was used to indicate the Chinese reading, which is also often the role of the part on the right of kanji in the tsukuri position. Check out this video if you'd like a refresher on that. Anyway, the story I'm using for this kanji is quite simple. The Sun Temple honors time, bringing us to a small little kanji that means small. Yes, I'm going to keep doing that. Small is its own radical because it shows up all over the place. We can break it down into a feathered broomstick and 8, though. There are 3 strokes in small. We start with the feathered broomstick in the middle, making sure to curl the bottom up to the left. We then draw the 2 strokes in 8, first the one on the left, and then the final stroke on the right. Historically, this kanji has changed very little, always with 3 strokes in almost the same positions. Which means our story can be simple too. The smallest feathered broomstick is 8 centimeters long. Like, of all feathered broomsticks. It's just like a tiny little, for cleaning keyboards or something. Which brings us to the Lesson 11 quiz. In this section of the video, I'll show you a flashcard with the English meaning for a kanji. Pause the video when we show each card and try to remember how to write that kanji. Next, write it on your hand with your finger or on a piece of paper. Then press play and see if you were right. The best way to remember kanji you just learned is to search your memory for the story we taught you, or the one you made based on the English word on the flashcard. Our first card is small. Next is temple. Just a few more. Here's year. And then there's noon. Finally, we have time. Let us know how many you got right down in the comments. You can learn the next 5 kanji by clicking here, if the video is already out. If you don't want to wait, you can continue learning with our level 1 kanji flashcard deck for ANKI on ToKiniAndy.com. We're also releasing kanji series videos early for all the members there, so check it out if you want a head start.